Welcome, 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 everyone, to the Women's Empower Network. We have another amazing woman here with us today, Kate. Welcome, Kate.
How do you do, darling? I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, you and me both.
Go get them, baby. It's
I
Thursday.
know, right?
Yeah.
Well, usually the first question I start out with is if you would tell us a little bit about your story and journey that led you to what you're passionate about today.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Yeah. As God is my witness, and I have great faith. At 11 years old, I took my grandmother to mother's novena prayer books and started praying for twins. Not specifically twin girls, but twins. I can take you to the church and I can take you to the pew where it began. Now, isn't that wild? And 31 years later, I'm blessed with adopting twin daughters because I couldn't have children. Now
Oh,
go
wow.
there. Twin daughters. And we had one day. My husband and I had made application in February, and in June 9th, on June 8th, we were told you have one day to pick up your daughters. I didn't even know what a baby was. I mean, women wait 9 months. We didn't have anything in our home that said baby. And no one told me it would be a day's notice. And I certainly didn't have any help. My husband practiced law and he went on trial. So we
Oh,
picked
gee.
those we picked those bouncing babies up in Chicago in a taxi, no baby seats, in our arms, drove to the adoption agency, held them for 2 or 3 minutes, and there they went off into the wind. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. And
Wow.
we were so blessed at the time. I'd prayed for them and we had twins. And we made it when we made application. I said to them, have you ever had twins? And they said, we haven't had twins in 18 years, but there is a mother expecting twins and we don't know if she'll give them up.
Wow.
Let's talk about some faith. Okay. Yeah.
And
And
divine
I was,
intervention.
you go through this thing and he's going off onto a trial for 9 days, 9 days. And I have two to take care of. And I don't even know, a
Right.
diaper. I don't even have one in the house. And my mother lives in Des Moines, Iowa.
No
So,
formula, no nothing, right?
uh-uh. So anyway, lo and behold, I'm blessed with my girls and I'm really tickled pink. Joel comes home. We're looking at books, trying to figure out names for the babies because we didn't know. And, it was just a glorious moment. They were darling. And I was just so blessed to be a mother. And 3 years later, my little girl, is in a bedroom in her home, in our home. We had gotten divorced. Yeah. So anyway, we're in a home and it's about 2:30 in the morning, and Caroline wakes up and she goes, Mom, there's a man at the end of my bed, and he said, Daddy is, and he went away, Mom. And I'm hearing this, and I go running down the hallway, thinking it's a bad dream. Nothing more. I had no idea. Well, lo and behold, that was the introduction to early onset schizophrenia, which is
Wow.
1 in 40 million people in the world that experience
Wow.
early onset. Yeah. But it wasn't until, and then there'd be little scenarios, she wouldn't sleep in her bed alone because she was afraid. They were telling her in her head that people are going to come up from underneath the bed and take her.
Oh,
So
wow.
now we're all sleeping in mom's bed. Her twin sister has to be on one side of her, and I have to be on the other. Now the twin sister's really mad. And then there were other scenarios where she said, Mom, I'm going to go out and play with our friends. And we lived at the top of a hill, and everyone would congregate up in the yard, but there'd be nobody there. So I didn't know. It was so daunting that all these little things that we take for granted when we're young and, we're with our folks and friends and everybody's growing up, and some kids have imaginary friends. I walk down the street at 70 years old and I'm talking to myself. I don't know. You're just kind of day tripping and thinking about the wind and the trees. And Sure enough, Caroline had a bunch of people talking in her head. And it started out with three, two predominant, I'm going to call them demons because that's what they were. And we ended up with 23, by third grade, 23 live demons in her head, talking to her all the time, just assaulting her day and night. And oh, I never once thought to ask her at that time because I talked to doctors about the behaviors, and I never once thought to ask her about, do you have people talking to you in your head? I just never thought about it. So, what we learned, yeah.
So how old was she when she was finally diagnosed properly?
Properly.
Yeah.
Well, they
And uh,
kept saying they'd say she was bipolar, and then they'd say she had psychosis, and then da 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 da. And they asked me if she'd ever been hit in the head for the environmental side of schizophrenia or the genetic, and we didn't really. We had a closed adoption, so we didn't know her mother. So they pass off all these things for her, but you can't really formally diagnose anything until 18. So it was Menninger Clinic that told us at uh, 15 years old, I think 13, that she had schizophrenic effect. And it included bipolar 1 and psychosis and all kinds of things. Everything you can imagine in mental illness. And it wasn't until I took her down to Mayo Clinic with a marvelous, I'm telling you, you just wanted to squeeze him. He was such a great doctor. And there are few and far between when it comes to knowing mental illness. And his name was Dr. William Bobo. And we called him Bowtie Billy Bobo. Oh, he was just charming. And he'd look Caroline in the eye, and he wasn't on his computer, and he didn't have 15 minutes. He gave us an hour and a half of his time. And when he met us and he came to get us in the receiving room, and he was watching Caroline from afar, which we didn't realize, fill out her own application. And he said, "You are among the chosen few." He said, "I'm going to tell you right now, you're one of 18% in the world schizophrenics, high functioning." And that's what he left us with. 18. That's when we were formally diagnosed.
well, and what does this high functioning mean?
Meaning that if you met Caroline, she can talk to you about anything under anything under the umbrella. She's very quick. She's very personable. And when on the right medicines, you know, you'd never have any idea that she was
Wow.
ill. Not anything. She can, and she's very gregarious. Absolutely doesn't know a stranger, which I love. Being like, the mother doesn't know that either. So, but I'll tell you the most glorious moment regarding adoption and caregiving and schizophrenia and all. When we met their birth mother, um, we were in a room and the children were 18, so we were allowed to meet, and they really wanted to, and they'd expressed that at 6 and 7, and I'm so grateful that wasn't we weren't able to do it then, because that would have even mixed their lives up even more. They just had to settle in, and this was home. But ellen katie ellen kate was on this side, Caroline was on this side, and their birth mother was in the middle. And I'm going to tell you, I had raised those girls for 18 years, 365 days, 7 days a week, and there wasn't 1 ounce of me in that room. That birth mother her little eyebrow went up, and one of the other girls' eyebrows went up, and she had a little twinkle, and they had a little twinkle. There was not, it was the most glorious, most wonderful moment to appreciate the wealth of a mother. I'd never felt
Wow.
that before. It was the most glorious moment I've ever had in my life to watch.
Wow. That's amazing. So it was a closed adoption, but apparently at 18,
You can,
if
yeah.
one of you, that's great. So then did you learn if there was history in her family?
Oh, there was oodles of history from the birth mother's side. She had an uncle in Puerto Rico who lived in a dark room on the water. So we knew then that it was genetic. And I think,
Wow.
yeah, and I think that it even came closer in regards to maybe the birth mother having some issues as well.
Wow. So
Yeah.
how old is this daughter now?
My twins are 29.
Wow.
and they've been independent. The thing that, you're always questioning with guilt and shame because you've been angry and you've yelled, and, it's just all, and every mother and father have done it in their own time. But they're both independent, and they're both really capable young women who experience mental illness. My twin sister, her twin sister has everything but. She has OCD, and she has a short-term memory that's really problematic if she gets stressed. And but Caroline, she got the whole kit and caboodle.
Wow, but I mean, so what's going through my mind is, here you have you don't even really know what you don't know
Oh
when they're
yeah.
growing up, right? Trying to figure this out and the effect that it's having on the other daughter, the quality of
Oh,
life
it's
for the
daunting
other daughter.
because I don't realize is I thought, I was really fair. If Caroline got something medically, my other daughter got something that she wanted, and she wanted to go on a mission trip to Puerto Rico. So I sent her on that. And I thought I was, just trying to be fair in the world. I was always there, but I wasn't there, my other daughter told me. I was so consumed with getting my daughter healthy and getting her to a doctor so that we'd function better in the house. It's an illness that affects everyone. And I think what the troubling part is the emotional support for my other daughter lacked.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
That's,
Yep. And she pays a price for that today. I mean, she goes to therapy, she talks about it, but she pays a price for it.
I can't imagine. And then being a single mother on top of it
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
working,
Yep.
I can't even imagine.
And I have to tell you something. These were my God sayings. Wonder Woman diaries. I had 75 of them. I wrote voraciously in my diaries. And if I hadn't, I don't know what I would have done to have sanity because nobody got it. There weren't therapists or anyone. And I didn't have any friends because, don't go with that family because, they've got one that. Um, but I used to write, or I wrote a note saying what it took me to get out of the house before I even started the car every single morning. And I'll be darned if I can find it because that list, I mean, you almost had to laugh. No one could even imagine, what it took.
What it took
It's
just to,
almost like you had to kiss 23 demons. Don't disrupt her today, just to get her through school. And she didn't finish sixth grade.
really, what happened then?
Well, it became so problematic at school and there was so much going on, and she's a young girl, and so she's developing and coming of age, and medications were, here, give her something, give her something. I would pray to say I want her blood checked every 3 to 6 weeks. I want that done so we see the absorption rate and we can understand what's working and what's not. I mean, she's coming into puberty, and she just couldn't handle it. Mm-mm. So then I brought a woman in to homeschool her, and nope, that didn't work either. So she's now acquired her GED, but no. Mm-mm. And you're left. I couldn't. And Iowa, I will say openly, is one of the worst places for mental illness. They are at, if the bottom line is 50, they're at 57 in the
Wow.
country. Yeah.
Wow.
It's just awful. So I spent the majority of my money. And fortunately, I had means at that time. Today I don't, but I'm proud of where they are. That's the best part. But Menninger Clinic and Mayo Clinic were the ones who gave me the greatest gifts. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So what is it you do today?
So today, I'm so happy that you asked me. Today, I went through a period where I had a company called Mental Illness Iowa, and I worked with families experiencing childhood mental illness and suicide. I've experienced suicide with the girls any number of times, start to finish. And fortunately, they chose in the very end not to do that. But I've worked with grandparents taking care of children after school and issues there. I've worked with parents sending their kids to college. But then, I kept going through all of these variations. When both of the girls moved out of the house, um, it took me And I didn't realize how caught up I was in mental illness, frenetic chaos for 22 years.
Right? Yeah.
You know, it just becomes your norm. And so I moved 5 times in 2 years. Bought, sold, bought, sold, bought, sold. Just trying to figure out where I was. I had no idea. And I was just in a fury. And finally, I stopped after experiencing this wealth of meeting people on the road in my RV with mental illness Iowa and started thinking about the caregiver because I was still experiencing residuals from that life with my children, as was my other daughter. And we would talk about it. So I work now supporting caregivers who are experiencing or supporting those experiencing mental illness, whether it's a veteran, which I've worked with wounded warriors and a whole variety of veterans' families, and more. I have a company that for about 25 years, I've placed Filipinos in people's homes who chose not to go to retirement communities. So caregiving has been a natural part of my life for a long, long time, as it has in everyone's life. We take care of
Right.
children, we take care of dogs, we take care of parents, we take care of our, anything. So, but the definition of taking it to a professional level is that. So I support caregivers now because
Wow,
there's,
that's so fascinating. And
yeah,
it's interesting too that you said you diversified out from just caretakers of mentally challenging
yeah.
children to all caretakers. What made you decide to expand out? What is in common with all of them? I would think the ones with children with mental illness would have different needs than, say, somebody taking care of an elderly parent.
Well, I think the bottom line is that those taking care of mentally ill children are either parents, the children are institutionalized, they're in a lockdown for a period of time, and those I don't always say are the best caregivers. I mean, you have good caregivers and you have bad caregivers, and that's just the bottom line. But to think of who takes care of a parent and who takes care of their own child, there's a loyalty that's there, that's you know heart driven. um, my wanting to keep people at home and not send them to a nursing home, because when you're at home you don't know when you're going to die. You don't know whether it's going to be in the bathtub or the kitchen sink. But when you go to a nursing home, that's the last stop, that's it, and you've got a room. So I recruited nurses overseas for a couple of years. I worked out of 5 countries and brought them back to a hospital out in New Trenton, New Jersey, and fell in love with the Filipino community. Oh, generous, and it just warmed your heart because it's felt where I came from. So I brought them in and started working with them and placing them in people's homes in California, Chicago, and Des Moines for 20 some odd
Wow.
years. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. But
Mm-hmm.
why the Philippines? What was unique about that region?
Well, because they were just so giving and there was just a natural family orientation, and they hadn't had all of the things that America gives people. They hadn't had all the options. And if yeah, so they were a little bit more hmm, inexperienced in city life, but graciously and warmly experienced in generosity of care. That,
Wow.
that's the baseline of it.
That
And
is so interesting.
once you've had one Filipino, you don't go back. I'm telling you, they are
That's
lovely. I had a core of 10 men and women, and I still have a one woman that's placed with a lovely family here in here in Iowa. So she and her
so
husband.
so do you still do that part? Do you still place
If
uh
someone calls on me, I don't do it regularly like I did before. And I didn't charge for it at the time because I was hoping that it would get me closer to heaven. And you know what? I don't want anybody to go if they don't want to go. So, but it was a great time and I just loved it. Um, oh, I forgot. Oop, I had a moment, too many things.
I understand.
Yep. Oops.
Well, we were
Oop.
just talking about if you still placed
Oh, yes.
caretakers in
If someone
homes.
calls me, yes, I will. I have wonderful contacts. So if someone calls me and they need someone, absolutely, without question. But I don't do it daily like I used
As
to.
a practice. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what is it that you focus on today? What do you
I,
love to focus on today?
what I focus on today is the quality of someone's life as a caregiver. And mental illness is for, 30 years second nature to me. I mean, like the back of my hand, every part of it, insurance and all of it. But most importantly, it's what I lost in that I want to give to others, knowledge that they don't have to lose themselves in it, because it's daunting. So in working with caregivers as a speaker or one-on-one as a coach, it's remarkable. All of a sudden you have this bosom buddy feel when you sit down with someone, you say, and they open their mouth and they say, yeah, she has or he has, and it's all of a sudden, boom, there's this collision of, aha, oh, I can sit back. She gets me. He gets me. And I work with a lot of single daddies that just don't know what to do.
Wow.
They work full
Wow.
time. They have a child if they're divorced or widowed, or, some have even come even married and said, you know what? I just don't know how to support my wife. So it's been very
Wow.
interesting.
Well, that's amazing. Well, we'll be sure to put your contact information below this interview so that
Thank you.
people know
Thank you.
how to reach out. And,
And
you
I
know,
thank you for the time.
oh, of course, of course. And yeah, if you just want to have a conversation with Kate, um,
Absolutely.
you know, just yes, absolutely on any level, any level. I know you're there, you're very passionate and very giving and
Well,
very,
you never know a stranger in it. And once you can just break loose and just say the first words, I just need help. And we don't do that. We keep persevering and thinking, you know what? Well, we got to do it. We got to keep face, save face, and all that. And you got to break down and come back up. And that comes with what you favor and the flavor in your life. You've got to come back into it. And it's really a great experience working with all kinds of people to do that, because I still
wow.
gain so much from it. So I welcome those telephone calls, and they're free and open. You bring them home to Katie.
I love it. I love it. Well, before we go today, are there any parting words of wisdom you want to share?
I just want to share, it's not about you, what has happened, that there's a plan and you can still evolve and find your place and be generous and giving and loving. No matter what has happened back there, I don't think any single person is ever ready to take hold of mental illness, to take hold of schizophrenia at all. But there is life after schizophrenia, as a parent, as a caregiver, as a grandparent. So come on in. Let's talk about it. I'm Katie Kaplan. I'm so ready to say hello. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for letting
Thank
me
you
chat.
for being here. And just you're such a gift. And I feel so fortunate that you found us somehow in the Women's Empower Network
Yeah.
because I have interviewed quite a few moms, amazingly, that, you know, that their children have autism.
Oh,
Um,
and that's equally as demanding, because if you have one autistic child and then you think, okay, we have a second baby and the second baby's autistic, you have this chaos and frenetic, and it's very similar what the demands are from you.
yeah, I
So,
just,
and
wow.
that autism is a very interesting topic. Yeah.
Well, we'll save that for another day.
Another day. Hey, happy Thursday. Love being with you.